Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're continue exploring Vecna, Eve of Ruin. We're going to look at Chapter 6, and right now, the player characters meet Argentira Skywright. So Riffle takes the player characters to meet Argentira Skywright, and she is a proper, full-on, strong, um, naturalist werewolf, and she is essentially like an officer. She's not the leader. She's an officer of, and officer isn't correct. She's a major leader. She's so I want to make sure this is clear. The Blue Fire Wardens, Riffle, is a Kender werewolf in the Blue Fire Warden, but they're not a military organization. But this is really interesting. Factions in Dungeons & Dragons, often these factions are groups of people who are joining together to accomplish something. And the easiest way to do that by far is military hierarchy. But many groups do not accept traditional hierarchies. So the Blue Fire Wardens, they are a naturalist organization. They're not going to have a military grade, but they do have a leader, and that leader is Valendar, right? And we get the idea that Riffle is he's a individual contributor in the Blue Fire Wardens, but you get the idea that Argentira is more of a senior agent within the Blue Fire Wardens. So Argentira Skywright is this major werewolf, and the player characters meet this person in their werewolf form, right? And also, it's interesting because we're seeing these werewolves in different forms, right? They might be in Kender form. Argentira is met in a werewolf form, right? And also, we're also starting to deal with werewolves. Argentira is able to speak with the player characters, with the Dragon Master characters, in her natural werewolf form, but has control of herself. She's not like animalistic or savage, right? And so, it's very interesting. Just, I'm really enjoying seeing the way that we deal with werewolves on Grin. Also, if you haven't noticed, I think this is why we are not getting a werewolf character in Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons is like, we already have werewolves. We already have wolves. They're called werewolves, right? And so being a werewolf in Dungeons & Dragons is really emerging as a major. Lycanthropy is not going to stop you from being a player character or a Dragon Master character. And I think, because I've been waiting for, like, a Leonin is a lion player character species, right? And I keep waiting for there to be a wolf species, and I think Dungeons & Dragons' answer is like, no, you're not going to ever get a wolf species. If you want to be a wolf, you need to be a lycanthropy, a werewolf, right? And I think they're making werewolves a bigger part of D&D all the time, which is really quite fascinating. I'm very interested in that. So Argentira Skywright becomes connected to the player characters, and the player characters, are doing their thing, right? And so and Riffle explains, okay, Argentira Skywright, the reason why the players are kind of handed off to Argentira Skywright. And this is interesting, as I'm beginning to master understanding Dungeons & Dragons canon hardbacks, I see that often I'm like, why is Argentira Skywright necessary? Why doesn't Riffle just give this information? But the reality is each player character is essentially like a mini dungeon, and the treasure is the knowledge they have. So Argentira Skywright gives the player characters really critical information that they need to understand about what's happening. And so what is happening? So the player characters know they need to get to the Three Moons Vault, right? And they know that Lord Soth's forces put the fifth piece of the Rod of Seven Parts in Three Moons Vault. Now, who did this? Well, Argentira Skywright, the good aligned Kryn werewolf that's part of the Blue Fire Wardens, at this point says, okay, here's what's going on. Termini Nightsedge is an elf archmage, and she is serving Lord Soth. So she's the main leader of the forces that took the fifth piece of the rod of seven parts, right? She goes further, and Argentira explains this Archmage is a renegade from the mages of high sorcery. But the mages of high sorcery are split into the Order of the White Robe, the Order of the Red Robe, and the Order of the Black Robe. And so Termini Night Sage is an Archmage. She has major magical power. She is very strong from an arcane perspective, right? But she is a renegade from the mages of high sorcery, and she specifically was in the Order of the Red Robes. And what she has done is she has shrouded the Three Moons Vault in transformative red moonlight. And anytime any werewolf gets into that transformative red moonlight, they will immediately lose control of they won't be able to control themselves the way Argentira Skywright does, and they become animalistic and savage, and they will immediately attack everyone. And in that rage state, Termini Night Sedge is able to control them, right? And able to bend them to the will and bend them to her will and use them as a tool for Lord Soth, continuing to spread Lord Soth's evil plans throughout their plans throughout this area, right? Throughout Kryn, right? So very, very interesting. And then Argentira Skywright continues and says, okay, so right now the Three Moons Vault is shrouded in this red transformative moonlight, right? But not only does Termini Night Sedge actually serves Lord Soth, and because of that, she's had access to learn additional spells and master her arcane power by dealing with a dragon, and that dragon is Orynyx. And Orynyx has actually given Termini Night Sage rituals that will take the shroud of transformative red moonlight that she has already put on the Three Moons Vault onto that will make it permanent, right? And so right now, Termini Night Sedge is actually working on putting into place these rituals. And so the player characters need to rush. They need to rush to the Three Moons Vault. And I love the urgency, right? Like, you should, this is smart. You should put urgency on your quests, right? So the player characters need, the Dragon Master characters, they need to rush to the Three Moons Vault. They need to get there to stop Termini Night Sedge from making the shroud of transformative red moonlight permanent, right? And when they go in to the Three Moons Vault, Valendar, the leader of the Blue Fire Wardens, who was there when the Blue Fire Wardens attacked Three Moon Vault, he is, because of this transformative red moonlight, he is actually fully stuck in his werewolf form, and he is animalistic and savage. And so the person that they need to actually rescue is actually going to be a threat to the player characters. Additionally to that, Argentira Skywright actually sends the player characters to the Three Moons Vault, and with Riffle. So Riffle, this Kender werewolf, is going to take them there and is going to allow them to get there and put everything into place that needs to happen, right? And actually, Riffle's going to get them there, but Riffle has to have almost like an inoculation, a vaccine, not a vaccine, an antidote, right? So Riffle is a werewolf too. If he just runs to the three moons vault, he'll be impacted by he will be impacted by this. He will be affected by the shroud of transformative red moonlight. So all of this is together, and Argentira Skywright sends them off and says, okay, go take care, get Valendar, and be aware that Termini Night Sedge is going to be there. She has major power that she's learned while she's been serving Lord Soth. And also don't forget that Termini Night Sedge is also is a archmage who has been trained by the dragon Oryx. Lot going on, and man, oh man, all of this is epic, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard about the coolest parts of Chapter 6 are my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion. We get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.